The story begins on a rainy night in Chicago, a city known both for its resilience and deep tensions between law enforcement and minority communities. The streets glisten under streetlights as Malik Cross, a sharply dressed black man in his late 30s, drives through a quiet neighborhood in a sleek black sedan. He's calm, focused, and observant, traits that seem instinctual rather than casual. Suddenly, flashing red and blue lights illuminate his rearview mirror. 3 white police officers in an unmarked patrol car pull him over. They approach slowly, but aggressively, hands already on their holsters. Malik keeps his hands visible on the steering wheel, asking with a steady voice, "Is there a problem, officer?" One cop, Officer Brentley, claims Malik's taillight is out. Malik politely disagrees, explaining that the car was recently serviced. But the officers don't seem interested in conversation. Instead, they ask him to step out of the car without providing a reason. Malik complies but maintains an air of quiet caution. He seems more controlled than the average civilian. Even under pressure, the tension escalates when Officer Brentley opens the passenger side door without permission. Malik asks for a warrant but is immediately shoved against. The hood and handcuffed. Within moments, one of the officers finds a small bag of cocaine under the seat, along with a handgun with a scratched-off serial number in the glove compartment. Malik looks stunned but says nothing. A nearby resident, hearing the commotion, begins filming the incident with a shaky smartphone. The footage catches parts of the encounter, particularly Malik's calm demeanor and the aggressive posture of the officers. But the camera pans away during the critical moment when the drugs and gun are discovered. As Malik is shoved into the back of the cruiser, Officer Brentley mutters to his partners, "Let's see what the golden boy has to say now." This cryptic line implies that this wasn't a random traffic stop, it was targeted. Malik is taken downtown, booked for possession of narcotics and an unlicensed firearm. The arrest report paints him as hostile and uncooperative, despite the video contradicting that claim. His fingerprints are supposedly matched with a sealed juvenile file in a different state, conveniently enough to justify holding him without bail. In his holding cell, Malik remains silent, even when asked routine intake questions. He gives his name, but no address, no emergency contact. No criminal history can be confirmed. He refuses to speak with police, instead calmly requesting a public defender. Meanwhile, the cops begin leaking details of the arrest to a local news station, feeding them a narrative that Malik is a suspected drug runner with ties to a violent urban network. The footage from the bystander is aired, but edited to appear as if Malik was resisting arrest. By morning, Malik Cross is already being trialed in the court of public opinion. Protesters begin gathering outside the police precinct, but the narrative has been set. He's just another criminal taken off the streets. But unknown to the police, the media, and even his lawyer-to-be, Malik is no ordinary man. His silence isn't guilt, it's protocol. And the truth, once revealed, will change everything. This is just the beginning of a much bigger war between lies, identity, and a government desperate to bury the past. In the days following Malik Cross's arrest, the city of Chicago becomes a battleground not just on the streets, but in the media. News outlets quickly seize the narrative shaped by police. Malik is portrayed as a well-dressed kingpin, a supposed mastermind hiding behind a polished image. Anchors repeat police statements that he resisted arrest, had clear ties to organized crime, and was found with an unlicensed firearm and narcotics. A blurred mugshot flashes on every screen. The public is polarized. To some, Malik fits a damaging stereotype, another dangerous man in a suit pretending to be legitimate. But to others, especially within the black community, something doesn't sit right. Malik's composure, the questionable circumstances of the stop, and the edited cell phone footage spark suspicion. Activists demand body cam footage, but police claim the officers' cameras were malfunctioning. At the center of the storm is Ava Ramirez, a determined and principled public defender. She meets Malik for the first time in the cold, fluorescent-lit confines of the jail's legal interview room. Ava, Latina and street smart, is used to working with reluctant clients, but Malik is something different. He's calm, unafraid, and almost unnervingly controlled. He answers her questions politely, but with as little detail as possible. He confirms his name but gives no home address, no family contacts, no employer. When Ava asks about the drugs and gun, Malik simply says, "Planted." All of it. He doesn't plead. He states it like fact. She presses for more, but he remains silent. Ava begins digging. She searches public records and databases for anything about Malik Cross. What she finds is strange. He virtually doesn't exist. There are no school records before 2010, no credit history before that year, no tax returns, no driver's license applications. It's like he just appeared a decade ago. Curious and increasingly uneasy, Ava contacts an old friend who once worked in federal background checks. What she hears is chilling. Malik Cross's file is sealed, flagged with a federal access restriction code rarely seen reserved only for high-level national security interests. It's not just privacy protected. It's completely locked out, even from law enforcement. Back at the jail, Ava confronts Malik with what she's found. He stares at her for a moment, then finally breaks his silence with a warning. If you keep digging, you won't be safe. This case is bigger than drugs. Bigger than police. You're in it now. Despite the warning, Ava refuses to back down. She files a motion to have the evidence re-examined, citing inconsistencies in the officer's arrest report versus the video footage. The motion is denied. Malik is denied bail. He remains incarcerated, surrounded by men who've seen the same. Headlines and now view him as dangerous. Meanwhile, Malik's story begins to gain attention on social media. Activist groups demand justice, and independent journalists start asking the right questions. Why was the body cam footage missing? Why? Did the officers turn off GPS tracking on their squad car? Why does Malik's past not exist? Public protests grow louder, but the city authorities stay silent. Unbeknownst to most, the real reason Malik isn't defending himself is because he's trained not to. He's lived a life in the shadows, doing what most Americans could never imagine. And if the truth about who he really is comes out, it won't just vindicate him, it will shake the U.S. government to its core. After her eerie conversation with Malik, Ava Ramirez can't shake the feeling that she's stepping into something far beyond the ordinary. The more she investigates his background, the more questions pile up. No birth certificate, no education history, no hospital records. And yet, here he is, a man in a sharp suit with the poise of a diplomat and the silence of a soldier. Frustrated by official roadblocks, Ava decides to turn to her own back-channel network. She contacts Leon Harper, a retired intelligence analyst and cybersecurity consultant who once worked with the NSA. After some hesitation, Leon agrees to help her discreetly. He pulls encrypted traces, checks redacted federal registries, and finally, after hours of dead ends, stumbles upon a buried trail. The name M. Cross tied loosely to a decommissioned CIA operation called Red Lantern. Red Lantern is a ghost project, no public documentation, no personnel records. But whispers on dark intelligence forums describe it as a covert black ops unit formed after 9/11s, specializing in international infiltration, psychological warfare, and extreme rendition missions. Its operatives were known to have no formal identity, ghost agents trained to disappear when ordered. Ava is stunned. She begins to piece together a chilling possibility. Malik isn't just a wrongly accused man, he's a trained CIA operative whose existence was deliberately erased. The cops who arrested him may have had no idea who they were dealing with, or worse, they knew exactly who he was and had orders to eliminate or silence him. Her suspicions grow deeper when she returns to her law office to find it broken into. Nothing appears stolen, but her files on Malik are clearly disturbed papers slightly out of order, a hard drive warm to the touch. The only missing items? The notes she had taken after speaking to Leon. When she meets Malik again, Ava tells him what she's found. He stays silent at first, but finally says, "You're in this now. You need to be careful. You think the justice system is the enemy? The system is just the front door. Behind it are the people who train me to be invisible." Then, without fully confirming anything, he gives her a chilling hint. "Check the name Balthazar. It was my designation overseas." Ava types the code name into a secure intelligence search engine Leon provides. It triggers a warning. Accessing restricted federal asset tracking enabled. She slams the laptop shut. Now she knows without a doubt she's being watched. Torn between fear and duty, Ava continues anyway. She files an official inquiry to the Department of Justice about the status of Red Lantern. Days later, she receives a vague one-line reply. This inquiry pertains to matters of national security and cannot be confirmed or denied. Meanwhile, the police grow nervous. One of the arresting officers, Officer Dwyer, tries to backpedal in internal memos, suggesting confusion during the arrest. Officer Brentley, on the other hand, doubles down and is seen meeting with an unknown man in a black SUV captured on a grainy CCTV camera near the precinct. Ava realizes she has stumbled into a war of institutions, the police trying to bury their misconduct and a clandestine government agency trying to keep its secrets locked down. Malik isn't just fighting to prove his innocence, he's fighting for the right to exist, and Ava? She's about to become the only one brave or foolish enough to help him expose it all. The trial of Malik. Cross begins in a tense, high-security courtroom that's already buzzing with controversy. Protesters chant outside with signs reading, "Free Malik, and we want the truth," while news vans line the streets. Inside, reporters are crammed into the gallery, hungry for drama. Everyone knows this case is bigger than a simple weapons and narcotics charge, but they don't yet realize just how deep it goes. Ava Ramirez stands beside Malik, visibly tense but focused. Malik, calm as ever, wears a crisp gray suit and keeps his gaze locked forward, unshaken by the cameras or the prosecutors. The courtroom feels like a trap one wrong move, and everything could collapse. The prosecution opens by painting Malik as a textbook criminal mastermind. They claim he used his clean record as a cover, operating in the shadows as a mid-level trafficker. They point to the discovered gun and drugs, the officer's testimony, and Malik's refusal to cooperate. The jury listens, but Ava senses a shift. Some of them aren't buying it. Then it's Ava's turn. She immediately challenges the foundation of the arrest, the lack of body cam footage, the conflicting police reports, and the timeline discrepancies. She presents the cell phone footage, pointing out how the officers seemed oddly prepared and how Malik remained nonviolent throughout. But the judge sustains most of the prosecution's objections, shutting her down at key moments. Desperate, Ava files a motion to dismiss the charges based on unlawful arrest and fabricated evidence. She presents the mysterious break-in at her office and suggests someone is trying to suppress the truth about Malik's background. The judge listens, clearly rattled, but denies the motion, citing insufficient direct evidence of tampering. That's when Malik finally decides to speak. With the courtroom hanging on every word, he stands up during testimony and calmly states, "My name is Malik Cross. I am a former covert operative for the Central Intelligence Agency. I have served in operations across Africa, the Middle East, and South America. The name Balphaser was my operational designation under the Red Lantern program." The courtroom explodes in noise. Gasps, whispers, and shouts erupt before the judge slams her gavel for silence. The prosecution demands that the statement be struck from the record and that the court go into recess. But Ava pushes forward. She asks Malik under oath to describe one of his missions. He does. With remarkable clarity, Malik recounts a classified operation in Benghazi where he infiltrated a warlord's inner circle, extracted a captured diplomat, and evaded international detection, all without any official record. The courtroom goes silent again, the gravity of his words settling like fog. The prosecution panics. Within hours, federal agents appear in court requesting an immediate national security hearing and an order to suppress all further testimony from Malik. They invoke the state secrets privilege, claiming that allowing the trial to continue risks exposing sensitive operations. The judge, visibly shaken and now fully aware this is no ordinary case, orders a closed-door emergency session. In just one day, the trial has transformed from a local drug case into a national security nightmare. The government's top priority has shifted not to prosecute Malik, but to silence him before the world hears what he really knows. And Ava realizes that the courtroom has become ground zero for a massive cover-up, and she may be the only person standing in the way. The courtroom has been effectively transformed into a war zone of legal strategy, secrecy, and national panic. Following Malik Cross's explosive confession that he was a CIA operative under the now decommissioned Red Lantern program, the federal government moves fast to contain the fallout. The trial pauses abruptly and resumes behind closed doors with federal agents, Department of Justice officials, and intelligence lawyers flooding the chamber. The government invokes the state secrets privilege, arguing that Malik's testimony involves classified national security operations and cannot be discussed in a public court. They request that the entire case be sealed and the charges quietly dropped in exchange for Malik's silence. But Malik refuses. "I didn't survive war zones and black sites just to be erased by my own country," he tells the judge, his voice steady. Ava Ramirez knows that this is her moment to strike. She reveals that prior to the trial, Malik had entrusted her with a secured data key. Inside it is a set of documents, internal CIA memos, surveillance logs, and mission files proving Malik's deep involvement in high-level covert operations. More damning, the files include communications between the arresting officers and a private security contractor known to have CIA ties. The implication is clear. Malik wasn't randomly pulled over. He was being targeted. Ava pushes further. She subpoenas a retired CIA station chief, Gabriel Lyons, who testifies reluctantly but truthfully. Under oath, Lyons confirms Malik was a deep cover operative used by the U.S. for missions that were too dangerous or politically volatile to be publicly acknowledged. He admits that agents like Malik were never supposed to return to normal life and that some were intentionally burned, left without protection, their records erased, their names abandoned. The courtroom sits in stunned silence. Lyons then makes the ultimate sacrifice. He reveals that Malik's final mission had him intercepting an internal CIA trafficking operation involving American weapons sold to paramilitary groups, overseas groups with indirect connections to domestic law enforcement agencies. This operation, now known to insiders as Crimson Veil, had powerful figures involved who had every reason to make Malik disappear. The government scrambles. DOJ attorneys demand all testimony be struck from the record. But it's too late. Someone inside the courtroom, a freelance journalist, leaks audio of Lyon's testimony. Within hours, the recordings are posted online. The internet explodes. News channels run live breakdowns of the revelations. #Free Malik trends globally. Politicians begin issuing statements. Whistleblowers emerge from the shadows. The public now sees Malik not as a criminal, but as a betrayed American hero. Ava, however, knows that exposure comes with danger. She begins receiving veiled threats. A car follows her home. Her law firm servers are hacked. But she pushes forward, filing a motion for full dismissal of all charges and demanding a federal investigation into both the police officers and the covert operations involved. Malik's silence, once seen as guilt, is now understood as discipline. Born from years of secrecy and survival, the courtroom has become the epicenter of a battle between truth and power, loyalty and betrayal, secrecy and accountability. Now, with the world watching, the final judgment looms not just for Malik, but for the system that made him and tried to destroy him. The final day of Malik Cross's trial feels less like a legal proceeding and more like the climax of a political thriller. Armed guards are posted at every corner of the federal courthouse. Protesters pack the streets outside, chanting Malik's name and holding signs that read "Truth over secrecy" and "Our government betrayed one of its own." Inside, the atmosphere is electric. Judge Claire Mendel, once cautious and reserved, now commands the courtroom with sharpened focus. She has reviewed the mountain of classified evidence Ava Ramirez presented, including files confirming Malik's operations, the corruption within law enforcement, and the cover-up attempt by government officials. The defense has painted a detailed, chilling picture, not just of Malik's innocence, but of a broader conspiracy to erase a national asset once he became inconvenient. Federal attorneys continue pushing for dismissal on the grounds of national security. They argue that allowing classified operations to become public could threaten lives and diplomatic relationships. But Judge Mendel interrupts them with a striking statement. What threatens our democracy more, exposure of wrongdoing, or the silencing of those who dared to serve in its name? Then comes her ruling. She announces that all charges against Malik Cross are dropped with prejudice. The courtroom erupts. Not only does she dismiss the drug and gun charges, but she orders an immediate federal review of the arresting officer's conduct and refers their case to Internal Affairs and the DOJ's Civil Rights Division. The judge also addresses the CIA's role, declaring that while national security matters deserve discretion, no operative who served his country should be discarded like a liability. She calls for a congressional hearing into the Red Lantern and Crimson Veil operations. Malik doesn't celebrate. He simply nods, looks to Ava, and says, "You kept me visible." That's all he needed. The fallout is swift and intense. Within days, 2 of the 3 officers involved in the arrest are placed on administrative leave. One, Officer Brentley, is found dead in his home under suspicious circumstances, initially ruled a suicide, though Ava suspects otherwise. His personal laptop is discovered, wiped completely clean. On Capitol Hill, hearings begin. Testimonies from whistleblowers and leaked documents uncover a chilling reality. Red Lantern operatives were often seen as expendable and, when they grew inconvenient, targeted or neutralized. Malik's case proves the CIA didn't just abandon him. They deliberately enabled his fall. Ava, now both hero and target, is approached by major media and human rights organizations. She refuses book deals and interviews, choosing instead to start a legal initiative defending whistleblowers and abandoned operatives. She names it the Cross Foundation in honor of her client. Malik disappears shortly after his release. No press conference, no televised reunion, just gone. Some say he left the country. Others whisper that he was reactivated. A few believe he never really left the shadows. Weeks later, Ava receives an unmarked envelope. Inside is a CIA challenge coin, a worn medal for valor, and a handwritten note, "Mission complete. You never left me behind." Balthazar Malik's truth didn't just clear his name. It exposed a hidden war and forced a reckoning within America's most secret institutions. Justice, for once, was not only served, it was witnessed. And that, in a world built on silence, was the loudest victory of all.